The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on the day's Sports Stove Football Show Super Bowl preview. That's right, it's Super Bowl week. Looking forward to making our picks. And we got some NFL news to discuss as well. That's what's cooking on the day's Sports Stove Football Show. Welcome into a new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code STOVE15. That's that'll get you 15% off of your purchase. It is another Wednesday night, and we are just days away now from the Super Bowl, so we got plenty to talk about. I'm your host, Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing great. I guess should say doing super. So
doing super. Okay, very funny. Much going on this week, and of course, everything leads up to the Super Bowl this week. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And before we really get into the game and breaking down the game, Dad, I'm curious of your interest level in this Super Bowl. And are your intrigue level of how excited are you? How much do you want to watch of this Super Bowl matchup?
Well, I do want to watch. Again, I think every Super Bowl is important. I think it's great when you can say, look back and say, I remember that. And I saw that Super Bowl. I've been alive for all of them. I haven't necessarily seen all of them and definitely not watched all of them in their entirety. But do remember a lot of them there. I think, the Super Bowl has become so much in, so many ways as far as, generates a lot of money. People watch it for a lot of different reasons. People go to it for a lot of different reasons, but it is still a football game. It's the final football game of the year. And I think players, there's a lot riding for them to, get to play in a Super Bowl. It's great on their resume. If they become the MVP, that's a big deal. But I think the players, that really is still what they strive for when they start in training camp is, hey, to make it to the Super Bowl and to make it to this game. It is still the championship game. There's a lot goes into it. A lot of trappings go along with it. From there, a lot of people don't even pay much attention to the game in a lot of ways. It's become a way with, Super Bowl parties and just different things like that. I worked at a grocery store for a while, and I learned that Super Bowl was about our second or third biggest day of the year. So it was big from that standpoint. But I'm interested in this game. Again, I think, there's history riding on this one with Kansas City. And so I definitely interested to see how that goes. So, I'd say I'm definitely interested in it. I haven't kept up with all the news going on necessarily during the week. Been kind of a busy week so far, but there'll be a lot this weekend. I guess the award show will be this weekend. That'll give the awards for the year. I'm always interested. That's always interesting too.
Yeah, I look at this matchup, Dad. It just doesn't excite me. I think the way you put it was really good. It's a good point. The history factor of it and things like that. You want to see, a chance to see a three-peat if the Chiefs win. To me, I look at the matchup and I go, okay, two of the better teams in the NFL. That's good gravy, whatever. I like the players in Philadelphia, but I hate the coach. I like the coach in Kansas City. Really don't care for the players that much. So I'm in this weird spot where I'm like, I don't necessarily have a desire for either of them to win. I don't desperately hate, either team either. It's just a really weird situation. Again, it's a rematch from a couple seasons ago. Andy Reid going up against his old team, which isn't a big storyline right now. Mahomes continuing to cement his legacy in the NFL. Kelsey as well. Somebody will have a big performance, whether it's one of the running backs. Saquon Barkley has a chance to, just really stick it to the Giants. If he gets the win here, we'll see. But I'm intrigued by this game only in the sense that it's a football game and it means something. The matchup just doesn't get me excited. And, I know there's a lot of Eagles fans and a lot of Chiefs fans. I'm happy for them. But for me, it's just not something that I'm just so excited about. I will watch. I will tune in. If it stays close, then I'll stick around the whole game, those kinds of things. But this one doesn't get me super pumped up. I'm so geared already on the draft that's getting me excited. Looking at the prospects and studying for the big board and things like that. To me, this game is just it's more exciting than the Pro Bowl festivities. It doesn't get me jumping up and down for what it might be here this week. So, but hey, let's take a look at this game again. Two really good teams. The Chiefs 15-2 on the season. And when you look at this Chiefs team, what's been intriguing this year, Dad, is it really seems like the defense has been such a major factor for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, his year was fine, but it was definitely not an MVP performance of a season for him. It just wasn't what we come to expect from Kansas City. They lost 38-0 in the final week of the season, but none of their starters played in that game. So really, this is a one-loss team. When you really look at it, they lost to the Bills back in November 17th by 9 points, 30-21. In the playoffs, they played the Texans 23-14. It was not pretty, and as a matter of fact, I do not believe the NFL officials are favoring Kansas City, but that game was so poorly officiated, and the Chiefs were very fortunate in that game, in my opinion, to come out with the win. Then they go into Buffalo, close game. They play good football, 32-29. The Bills got out coached in that game. We talked about that before. Kansas City gets that win. So now they face off against Philadelphia on the season. You look at the year that has been had. Patrick Mahomes, like I said, it's a decent year, but not necessarily a great year at the same time. He averaged only 200. This is in the playoffs. Let me fix that. He just under 4,000 yards total on the year, 245 yards per game, 26 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. And that's really where you see a little bit of a difference there. You expected more touchdowns and probably less interceptions from him than what you got. Running backs, Pacheco got hurt and was out. He only played 7 games. Kareem Hunt comes back. He goes for 728 yards on 200 carries. Pacheco, 310 yards. Patrick Mahomes, 307 yards. Kareem Hunt, 7 rushing touchdowns. Kelsey led the way receiving. The rookie Xavier Worthy had a pretty solid season as well, 638 yards and 6 touchdowns in the season. Noah Gray was really the unsung hero of this Kansas City offense all year long, the backup tight end or the number 2 tight end. Had a really solid season this year as well. So interested to see kind of what this offense can do this week against against Philadelphia. And this Philadelphia team, Dad, they come in as a 3-loss team. They go through Green Bay, the Rams, and the Commanders in the playoffs. The defense dominated Green Bay in the first week of the postseason. The Rams game was really close and a dangerous game for the Eagles. And then they took care of the Commanders, especially later in the game, in that championship game as well. And Dad, we look at these Eagles team, and you just, they have been there and done that. They've been around. They've played a lot of big games, and by adding Saquon Barkley this year, they just, it was the difference in their season. Because Jalen Hurts, he only threw for 2,900 yards this season, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Barkley goes for over 2,000 yards with the playoff performances as well. 13 touchdowns from Barkley. Jalen Hurts, 14 rushing touchdowns this year as well. A.J. Brown goes over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Devontae Smith was really solid. Dallas Goedert was solid as well. But, Dad, really this defense is what you're looking at, I think, for both of these teams, is which defense can contain the other offense the most. And that's going to be the big question come Sunday, I think, at least in the Super Bowl. How are you feeling about this game, and which team gives you the most confidence?
Well, again, Philadelphia, it really has had a solid defense, and especially here in the playoffs all year. So that will be interesting. Um, there again, like you said, Kansas City really they have the coach, so he can be prepared for this. Kansas City's had a good defense also. Really, I think it is probably the two best teams or the two best teams that were playing the best now. Again, Buffalo, that was very, very close. So you could, maybe argue that a little bit there. But I think Philadelphia, Hurts came back. He's been, healthy. Saquon Barkley, in many ways is the difference. But again, they've got good wide receivers. They've got a good tight end. They've got a good offensive line. But the defense has really been, a lot of what has made the difference. They've had a rookie that's played well there. And, that end of it, Kansas City, like you said, a couple of years ago, defense kind of wasn't their strength, but this year it was. Of course, Chris Jones has played tremendous. They've got a great defensive coordinator. He has a plan, and he'll have a plan for this game too. So Kansas City, to me, one thing that's always been in the last few years impressive about Mahomes in Kansas City is he can have a successful season with different people. They've really switched the wide receiver core around from year to year. Kelsey has been a steady factor there, no doubt about that. Kind of a lot like Gronkowski was, I think, with Tom Brady in a lot of ways. But they've done it with different people. They didn't have the star running back. They had running backs hurt, but they've had running backs that have played well, no doubt about it, and their offensive line. So it's two good teams playing each other. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think the Chiefs, both have a lot on the line because both want to win the Super Bowl, but the Chiefs have a chance to etch their place in history with 3 in a row. We all know there are other teams that have won 3 championships in a row, but not 3 Super Bowls because they didn't have Super Bowls back then. But, they have a lot riding on this. And again, Mahomes is under contract for a while. Kansas City may keep going here for a little while. I wasn't sure they would do as well this year, but there are some other teams that are, looking good, and there are some other talented quarterbacks in the league also. And like I said, this was not Mahomes' best year in a lot of ways, but he's got his team in the Super Bowl. He does know how to win. And so I think the Chiefs are going to be very hard to beat. I think they're the team that should win this. If Philadelphia wins with on defense and Saquon Barkley dominates the game, then hey, it won't be a fluke. There'll be no doubt about that. But as far as the total team effort, Kansas City, I think, is going to be, very hard to beat. Like I said, some people are, tired of them winning. There's a lot of trappings that go on along the side with Kansas City. I heard someone today on a radio show. He is a former player, actually won a Super Bowl with another team. And he said, he couldn't bet against Kansas City. But he said it's very predictable what's going to happen. He said, Mahomes is going to throw a touchdown to Kelsey. We're all going to watch her hug everybody up in the booth. And then Philadelphia is going to make a great defensive play. And then there's going to be a flag. And that's just the way the game's going to go. But he said, you can't argue Kansas City, is going to be hard to bet against. And that was his description of it, and probably the way a lot of people feel.
All right, so you are picking Kansas City then? Yes,
I am, and that's who I'm for.
What do you think the score is going to look like?
Boy, I don't know. I don't know if the defenses are going to show up on this or not. It could be both teams would be in the 20s. I don't know that it'll be a shootout because again, both defenses are strong. So maybe it could be something like 24-21, something like that. I think it could be a close game, no doubt about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll go opposite of you on this one. I'm going to go Eagles in this game. I just feel like Philadelphia. I think Saquon's the difference maker in this game and for this team. That being said, I think that you're going to see, probably maybe I would assume it'd be AJ Brown. You're going to see a receiver going to have to step up and have a big game for Philadelphia, because when you look at Kansas City's strength, it really is in that front seven. And so the run game is going to be tested. The Eagles are going to try everything in their power to do it, and they've got a good running quarterback, a good running back, and a good backup running back too. But I think it's going to come down. They're going to need a big play from a wideout. Jalen Hurts is going to have to make a play with his arm, and I think AJ Brown's probably the guy to do it. So I think you're probably right. I'd put the score in the 20s as well. Would make sense, maybe slightly higher, maybe a 27-21 or somewhere in that range of a game. But I'm going to go Philadelphia in this one. I just think their players, there's something about this team. And as much as I don't like Nick Sirianni, I feel like this locker room is actually really solid for Philadelphia. And I think Kansas City, they're a team, they're together, but I think there's a little bit of all the outside noise has an effect on the inside. And so not only do you have Kelsey and Taylor Swift, but even Patrick Mahomes, there's just a lot of noise outside of the program. And so I'm going to go Philadelphia in this one. I think it's a little quieter inside the locker room and maybe a little bit more cohesive inside the locker room of Philadelphia. So that's why I'm going to lead that way and go with Philadelphia in this one. But I do think it should be a close game. Both defenses are really good, and we're going to see who. This is a horrible cliche, but who wants it more? At the end of the day, that's what's going to come down to is who's there ready to fight all the way through the game. That's who's going to come out on top. So I'll go Philadelphia in this one. Dad goes Kansas City in this one. Dad, if Kansas City wins, they three-peat. What's the chances Andy Reid walks away?
I don't know. That would be good timing. There would be no doubt about that. But I think as long as his health's good and he's feeling good, he's got the quarterback there. I don't know. I don't have a sense that he would necessarily hang it up after this. He might, like I said, timing would be good, Is there anything else to accomplish? Well, yeah, you can always,
win 4 in a row.
You can always win more. And if you're shooting for goals, Belichick and the Patriots, everything's still out there. So I think the thing with Andy Reid, he's accomplished, everything he'd accomplished. He'll be a Hall of Fame coach. I think it'll just come down to his health at this point. Because I think the organization is solid and they've showed they can win with different people. So, they're not going to lose their quarterback. So, I wouldn't necessarily think this is his last game.
Yeah, I was looking at it. In order for him to catch Don Shula, he'd have to go for another at least 4 seasons, I think, and have to be winning 12 or 13 games a year, if I did my math correctly. That goal is probably a little bit out of reach, I would think. That being said, I look at it as well out of his staff, and I go, I sit there and I go, I think that he's got guys on his staff right now that could seamlessly step in. Spagnuolo, the DC, if he steps in as head coach, they still got the offensive staff there. Like, I think that he could step away and it wouldn't impact greatly on Kansas City. He is older. He's been through a lot. It's kind of one of those things where, you can walk away on top or you can try to just keep going till you can't go anymore. So I'll be intrigued to see if I know there's not been a lot of talk about that. I know it's not something that is expected or anything like that, but I just sit here and go, if he wins this one, no better time to walk away than when you just win a championship. So we will see. Game starts at 6:30 Sunday night for the Super Bowl this week. I want to remind everybody to make sure you have your snacks ready to go for Super Bowl Sunday. And there's no greater snack than Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com and use the promo code STOVE15. That's STOVE15 for 15% off your purchase. I actually have some teriyaki Balboa sitting in the other room right now, and so I'm ready to snack on some jerky this weekend. Also, let's get into some other NFL news that went on this week, and of course, one of the bigger news stories in football this week was Myles Garrett announcing that he is ready to go out of Cleveland. I saw one report said he talked to LeBron before he made this announcement. I thought, well, there's no better way to make Cleveland love you than talk to LeBron about leaving Cleveland. So they got that under control. Dad, I look at Myles Garrett leaving, and obviously there's no bad fit for Myles Garrett. He's one of the best guys in the NFL, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Great rusher. Seems like a stand-up dude as well. Washington has been linked to Garrett a lot here in the news and different reports and things like that. But I've seen Buffalo. I've seen Dallas. I've seen a lot of different places go around. I'm intrigued to know, do you have any thoughts on Myles Garrett? Should he leave? How do you feel about him requesting a trade out of Cleveland?
Well, again, I don't know a lot about Myles Garrett necessarily personally. I mean, he's a great player. And like you said, I don't know that he's been necessarily a lot of problems. Cleveland, I don't know totally what his motivation is. I guess that's kind of the question. Does he really
know what his motivation is?
Well, if it's strictly money, then that's going to have to do. If it's to win the championship, then that's a different thing too. So what are you saying?
Well, his motivation is to get away from that dumpster fire that's Cleveland and get into a program that he actually has a chance to make a legacy more so than just playing good football. I mean, he's never going to get a ring in Cleveland. There's nothing he can do to get a ring in Cleveland. They've had quarterback issues left and right. They've had Deshaun Watson should not be on the team, and he is. And I mean, they've been so inept, and I don't blame him. I mean, I think he stuck it out. I think he did as much as he could in Cleveland, and now I say he's earned his right to go out and try to find a place that he could actually have a chance to win a championship. Like I don't think there's any question that if he stays in Cleveland, he never sniffs the Super Bowl. And I think he knows that. I think anyone would admit that's the case. And here we sit now, him looking for a better place to play. So, yeah, I think his motivation is pretty clear. Get me out of Cleveland, because it's a dumpster fire. It's a mess up there, and it's been misrun for a while now. And, and I know the Haslams, there's a lot of talk about them trying to tank for the Arch Manning, because they got ties to Peyton. I mean, if that's what they're going to do for the next couple of years, again, it makes sense for Myles Garrett to be gone as well.
Well, I think him leaving Cleveland, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But when you talk about where is he going to go, I think that's when it boils down to, is he most interested in a place where he can win a championship? Is he most interested in the money? Because, again, I've heard a lot of talk. Immediately when this hit, there was all kinds of stuff on the Green Bay radio, about the Packers having a chance to get him or whatever. And it comes down very quickly with them, and probably with a lot of teams, about finances. Or will they have room? Are we talking about a record-breaking contract? Because he doesn't have any guaranteed money right now on his deal. So he's going to want a new deal. If he's got to go somewhere where, yes, he wants to win a championship, but, his contract needs to be such, then that's going to limit some teams. There'll be other teams who can do that with his contract, but maybe not as good a chance at winning a championship as, some other teams might. So, we will see where it ends up. There again, he's a great player. He's going to make a difference wherever he goes. Washington, like I told you, I saw a thing where today he had an interview and said one of the things is one of the requirements is they need to have a great quarterback. So, that kind of makes it interesting too. As I looked at the list of who I thought he might go to me, I kept coming back to the 49ers. But I'm not sure having the great quarterback meets the criteria there. So I'm not sure from there. Washington, again, they've got the up and coming quarterback with Jaden Daniels. I think he'd be happy with that. Okay, he wants to play with a great quarterback. Well, you've seen Kansas City on the list. That sure makes, that fits that qualification. Green Bay probably fits that qualification as far as he'd be happy with Jordan Love and how things are going there. So I'm sure I would think this week there's been a lot of talk with GMs, with Cleveland, maybe with his people. And I think this will get sorted out fairly quickly. It wouldn't make sense for him to stay in Cleveland as far as winning a championship's concerned. So no doubt about that. But
and the other thing,
what direction it takes.
The other thing you have to remember about this too is he does not have a no trade clause, so he ultimately has no say in where he goes. They can trade him anywhere. Now, will they is one thing, but they can trade him anywhere. When you look at where Cleveland would want to send Myles Garrett, well, first of all, you got to think it's out of the conference.
Yeah,
like you got to think he's going to the NFC. Now, someone throws a big offer at you. I mean, Titans throw a number 1 pick at you, so now you're picking 1 and 2 plus more multiple picks. Then you're sitting here going, okay, well now we can get our quarterback, plus we can get a guy like Travis Hunter or a guy like Abdul Carter to come in and be an edge replacement for Myles Garrett. That's intriguing. You got the Giants right behind the Browns. I don't think they're going to trade away 3 to get up there. So then you're looking at teams like Washington and Philadelphia in the East. As far as teams that are contenders, if you're trying to be nice, but at the same time get something in return, you could do that. Washington has some players for sure they could send back with picks. Then you look at Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay in the North. The South doesn't have any great quarterbacks, but Atlanta's got a young quarterback in Michael Penix. They got some players. They've got there's been a lot of talk about them moving on from some of their young players, Kyle Pitts, the tight end. So you might be able to get a top tier player along with some picks and things like that. The Bears have been aggressive in different ways. They're a top 10 draft pick team this year as well. And then in the West, you mentioned San Francisco, makes some sense. Arizona is an intriguing team. The Rams are kind of seem like they're falling apart, and money wise isn't great out there. So I don't see that one happening, but I got to think they're going to go to the NFC unless it's a top 5 draft pick. And in that case, you're looking at the Titans, you're looking at the Patriots, the Jaguars as your AFC teams in the top 5 outside of Cleveland. So I'm intrigued to see how it shakes down for sure. I saw Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati mentioned today that he needs either a new contract or to move on, go somewhere else. So Cincinnati's going to have to decide if they're going to spend some money there on him as well. So there's a lot of things happening right now and will continue to happen, especially once the Super Bowl ends. But Dad, one of the teams that has me intrigued is the Las Vegas Raiders, because they hired Pete Carroll as their head coach, and then they bring in Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. So we had talked a little bit about this with Pete Carroll before. We talked about Russell Wilson. Does it make sense for them to join in and join back together again? Not sure that it does. But then you bring in Chip Kelly into the equation, and now all of a sudden you've got some more combinations of guys to look at. So let's look at a couple options. Russell Wilson is one. No one gets excited about that. I don't think it makes sense necessarily for that to work anyhow. So I don't think that's going to happen. Sam Darnold's an interesting one. USC guy. Pete Carroll, obviously a USC guy as well. And so Sam Darnold comes off this great season. He's a bridge quarterback, I think. So you bring him in for 2 or 3 years. Do you think that there's a quarterback in the draft that you can go get if you're Vegas to be the long-term answer? Do you need someone we'll talk about in a moment that maybe you can give a year or two to wait before they come in and play? So we'll see. So Sam Darnold, I think, is a legit option in Vegas. And then you look at Marcus Mariota, who had his great college years underneath Chip Kelly. And he's a solid veteran backup quarterback that in the right system has potential to be able to carry you at least again to bridge in a young quarterback. Well, which young quarterback should the Vegas Raiders bring in? Should they trade up for Shedeur Sanders? There's been a lot of talk about that. Should they trade up for Cam Ward? Should they hang tight for Jackson Dart? Or maybe now in the third round, they go out and draft Ohio State's Will Howard, who just played and won a championship with the one and only Chip Kelly. And now they can get him at a decent value in the draft and bring in a Mariota, bring in a Darnold, bring in a Russell Wilson to be that bridge quarterback for him. I think the Chip Kelly hire really kind of opens the door a little bit more for some other options.
Yeah, it was very interesting when I saw Chip Kelly go there. Like you said, that brings kind of a whole different dynamic to everything. And I think the way the Raiders ought to go is to get a veteran type quarterback and then draft someone in the second, third round that they have potential to work with, that has potential to be a quarterback in the NFL, or at least they think he does, and go from there. Now, I like Justin Fields, but Justin Fields doesn't really fit that mold because, I think he'll be a starting quarterback for somebody, definitely in the future. He might be a guy that the Raiders, again, it might be Chip Kelly would say, hey, we can develop. This guy's got the potential. This guy can do it. Chip Kelly has a history somewhat of that. But like you said, to me, Sam Darnold is the name that really makes a lot of sense. And then draft a guy in the second or third round, a quarterback, that drops that you think has potential to work with. That seems like that'd be a good move for the Raiders there. Now, is Darnold definitely going to leave Minnesota? Can they definitely get him? How is that going to go? I read also where somebody said they might try to get McCarthy from Minnesota. I don't think that would be the wise move at all. But we'll see kind of where that goes. You got obviously Aaron Rodgers floating around out there, but I don't think a long-term answer there. So, I think Pete Carroll, that was, a good move. To me, it was interesting when I saw the Chip Kelly thing, because I thought, well, how many years is Pete Carroll going to coach? And here you've got a guy right there that, has coached, has, been a head coach. That might be a real smart move in a lot of ways. So it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders are going to do. I'm not convinced that either quarterback in the draft is proven enough, either Cam Ward or Sanders, as far as being the can't miss guy. Obviously, somebody's going to take them, and maybe they'll take them in a situation where they have to start playing right away next year. But I don't know that that's going to be a wise move in either case. So we will see. And I don't think that'd be something the Raiders want to bank on. But but again, Chip Kelly brings a little different dynamic into that as far as working with quarterbacks. It was interesting what you said about Ohio State's quarterback from there. So we will see. Now, Chip Kelly, he was just at Ohio State 1 year, right? Just came in last year. Yeah. So he wasn't there with Fields or anything from there. But, of course, he was around Ohio State and people that were. So we will see.
For sure. So, lots of interesting things coming up with the offseason. We're going to be doing a lot of draft coverage after the Super Bowl and getting everybody ready for that. We'll have some special episodes, hoping to do some really fun interviews as well, hopefully with some players entering the draft. And we're going to try to get some people on throughout the offseason leading up to the NFL draft. But the rest of this week is all about the Super Bowl on Sunday and the awards. The awards are going to be fun, too, on Saturday to figure out. I don't think we're going to get any surprises there, but it'll be fun, and we'll talk about that next week. So when we come next week, we'll be recapping the Super Bowl, and we'll be looking back at the awards and things like that as well. We might even break in a little bit into the Sports Stove big board, draft big board next week as well. But yeah, good time. Dad, what's the plan for the Super Bowl? You guys got snacks planned for it?
No, we really haven't talked a lot about it yet. So definitely planning on watching it because there's a lot of interest in the players and everything there. So I'm sure we'll have some Super Bowl type food, but don't have that all scheduled yet. So.
All right. Yeah, we got I know I got some righteous felon jerky here, and then we'll have some finger foods and some different things also. A lot going on in the Sports Stove world here coming up as well. Of course, every Sunday I host the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. You can catch that on the Belly Up Fantasy Sports Facebook page, the Belly Up Twitter account, and then always catch it afterwards on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcast. The Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball podcast is available as well. We've already ranked catchers, first baseman, and second baseman. So this week we're going to do the show live on Monday night at 8 o'clock, and we'll be doing shortstops this week. So you can check that out. Then also next week, I'll be hosting the Belly Up Sports NASCAR Super Show, previewing the 2025 NASCAR season. I have an interview with Bob Pockris that'll be airing during that program as well. So a lot going on next week. And, of course, me and Dad will be back next week as well to recap the Super Bowl, the awards, and look ahead to some draft topics or other news that comes out throughout the week as well. Dad, anything else you want to cover before we head out?
Nope. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. And, again, a lot going to go on with the draft, and really football just really starts picking up when you start looking at that. So, a lot going on to discuss on our football show as the weeks go on here.
Yeah, and spring football, by the way, starting up before too long as well. We'll keep up a little bit with that also. All right, follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. And, of course, you can find more information about our show and other shows on bellyupsports.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sports Stove football show this week. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.